Now it's time to move on to the energy perspective. This is the bridge between energy and matter, that is between information and the hologram, because remember, all of this is an illusion that we are currently experiencing. This is the pineal gland. It's a very specific formation, which is a hybrid. It's both gasoline powered and electric. And right inside the brain, the formation itself, or the actual switch button, gives you the opportunity to decide when to run on electricity and when on gasoline. This is the epiphysis. That's why it's been known since ancient times as the third eye, because people normally have two eyes. We normally think that we live in a bipolar world. We split everything into good or bad, smart or stupid, black or white, day or night, sweet or salty, worthy or not. And actually the third, the hidden, the unknown, the all-seeing and all-awakening eye is the third element. Exactly for this reason, even in our physical bodies, the very trinity of existence is embedded. To understand meditation, I think we should first understand the pineal gland's function. And in order to understand the pineal gland, it is necessary to realize that we do not live in a dual world, but in a trinity. Simply put, at the center we always have the point of balance. This point, which is located between the two stretched polarities, forms a third point of view. This third perspective allows us to embrace the positive, as well as the negative in a state of balance, without judging, without labeling. In this way, we can neutrally observe both sides and then consciously choose to experience what we prefer, without invalidating what we no longer wish to experience. To accept it, to let it go, to leave it as is, to what we do not prefer. To be grateful for it nevertheless, because without the so-called negative polarity, we cannot develop discernment about what we truly prefer. So in this sense, it is inevitable and necessary. Everything is one, and one is everything. Let me remind you. Leave space, allow all aspects and reflections of creation to exist, because without one side, the other cannot exist. Whether we look through the lens of science, spirituality, or existence itself, the same pattern repeats, the Trinity. Why do you think the woman between the two main characters, Neo and Morpheus, in the Matrix is called Trinity, huh? It's probably just a coincidence. The world isn't just made up of two opposites fighting each other. There's always a third element that balances and connects the two extremes, turning them into a harmonious whole. Even if we think about it, when we put our two hands together, we get one hand, one mountain, something very strong, but it's a third thing. It's different from the right hand or the left hand itself. And while it's different, it can't exist without both hands coming together. Well, that's the third element. And since the second principle of Hermes says, as above, so below, this trinity should be everywhere. And yes, in the beginning there is nothing, or at least that's how it seems. Nothingness is not just emptiness, but the potential of everything that could ever be, that is, and that will be. The source hides cleverly in nothingness, the infinite consciousness that contains all existence within itself, but without having form, boundaries, or definition. In order to know itself, the source must unfold, divide, and create movement, because awareness is a process of comparison. You cannot know light if darkness does not exist. Without silence, sound can't be understood. This is how the two polarities are born. At the very act of oscillation, of doubt in the source, he knows everything, he has all the information, but it turns out he doesn't know what it's like not to know. That's where the impulse comes from. We've heard it in different variations over time. How were the active and passive, the masculine and feminine principles? In electricity, it's electricity and magnetism, spirit and matter. These are not opposites. These are two sides of the same thing. Different manifestations of the unified energy of the source. And here arises the greatest mystery of life. If everything is just two sides of the same coin, how does the interaction between them happen? How do you transition between them? This is where the third element comes into play: choice, the focus of research. The process of awareness, the connecting principle, balance. This is the Trinity. Imagine that you are on a swing. When you swing forward, that's one polarity. When you swing backward, that's the other polarity. But there's also a moment when the swing stops for a second right in the middle before it moves strongly in either direction. That's the neutral point. It's both neutral and absent. Yet it's there, and without this point between the movements, the swing couldn't move. Let's take hot and cold. What's the third? That's warm, which is in the middle, or 0 degrees. Water freezes at 0 degrees and at the same time melts at 0 degrees. It's neither too hot nor too cold. That's the balance that makes things possible. In the previous episode, we talked about the fundamental principle of quantum physics, the double slit experiment. It shows that a particle can behave like a wave, either as a formless potential or as a particle. A specific form, matter, depending on whether someone is observing it. Well, here is the Trinity even in quantum reality. The particle, the manifested. The wave, the possible. And the observer, the consciousness that chooses what will manifest. Reality isn't just black or white, isn't it? There is always a third element. The very consciousness that interacts with the two polarities determines which one will manifest, the choice. There is an organ in our body that reflects this principle of the Trinity, the pineal gland. It is the connecting bridge between the physical and the energetic, between matter and information. The pineal gland operates in three main states. The material state, as we are used to calling it, is when consciousness is focused on the physical world, or when we are awake. If you remember from the previous episode, this is the beta state. The energetic state occurs when the body sleeps, but we awaken in the energetic world. And the switch, our ability to be aware and to dance between the two states. This is why the pineal gland is also called the third eye. It not only balances the left and right hemispheres of the brain, but also allows us to see beyond the limited perception of duality. When we begin to realize this, we start to observe reality in a new way. Perceiving the Trinity gives us the freedom to create, to realize, and to experience life in a way that is in harmony with the universal laws. And as it is said in one of my favorite texts, The Strangest Secret, we can learn and ignore human laws for a while. But there are greater laws that we cannot ignore. That's why it's a third eye, because once you realize the third eye, then even the Mercedes symbol, in a way, takes on a different meaning. That's why we begin seeing the world from a new perspective. As we discussed, remember in the first episode, we talked about the camera and observation. Being able to see yourself from the outside. To open your third eye, let's take a look at this idea. When you open your third eye, you'll be able to see your past lives, reincarnations. You'll be able to recognize people by the colors of their aura, and you'll be more aware. You'll already be in the fifth dimension. Well, both yes and no. Your third eye is by default and by nature always open. You couldn't exist if it wasn't open. When we sleep, let me clarify how this happens. The pineal gland automatically opens. This is our connection to the energy world. If we weren't connected, we simply wouldn't exist. Everyone sleeps every day, about 7-8 hours daily. We spend 1/3 of our lives in a state of sleep, and that's when the pineal gland is most active. When your two eyes close, they say the third one opens. Well, maybe that's what people have been trying to say. Yes? The trick is when both your eyes are open to have your third eye open too. Well, you might say, hey, that's something. Well, yes, this thing requires a bit more work and effort. Even throughout history, the pineal gland has been seen as something much more than just a biological structure. If you've ever seen this symbol, the Eye of Horus, one of the most famous Egyptian symbols, you might not realize that it directly resembles the anatomical structure of the pineal gland in the brain. The Egyptians believed that this inner eye was the key to higher wisdom, the direct connection between humans and the gods. They didn't just carve it into the walls of their temples, it represented perception beyond the physical world, the ability to see the invisible, that which is hidden. Moving eastward, Hindu traditions speak of the Ajna chakra, also known as the third eye.
Oops, here it is again.
Positioned between the eyebrows, it is considered the center of intuition, insight, and spiritual awakening. The Sanskrit word ajna means command or perception, and yogic practices such as meditation, breathing, pranayama, and chanting mantras are intended to activate this energy center, which is often directly associated with the pineal gland. Many Indian sages and yogis have described deep meditative states where they can access universal knowledge, traveling beyond time and space. Experiences that are now being studied in modern neuroscience. Let's move on. The Greek philosopher Plato talks about two worlds, the visible physical world and the immaterial world of ideas and forms, if you remember. He believes that people have an inner ability to perceive a higher truth, but only if they turn inward, towards themselves, towards what they are. We encounter for the first time a text about the pineal gland itself in the works of Herophilus, a Greek healer from the 3rd century before Christ, the era of Alexander the Great. Its scientific name is the Latin word pinea, associated with pinus, pine tree. That's because this organ has the shape of a pine cone. It's no bigger than your pinky fingernail. Yes, the pineal gland is also unique because it's the only one of its kind in the brain. Most brain areas are paired, left and right. The first anatomical description of the pineal gland comes from Claudius Galen, one of the most famous doctors, anatomists, and philosophers of ancient Rome. He noticed that this small gland is located next to one of the major veins in the brain. Based on this, he suggested that the pineal gland controls the lymphatic glands, but the ancient Indian yogis had a completely different point of view. According to them, this small organ was not just a part of the body, but the third eye, which can see beyond physical reality. They believed that it reflects the soul's previous incarnations and that the human soul is located precisely in it. During the Renaissance, Vesalius, one of the greatest anatomists, also became intrigued by this mysterious organ. He was the first to depict the pineal gland in his anatomical sketches and compared it to the shape of a pine cone. Based on its location in the brain, he suggested that it acts as a valve that regulates the movement of cerebrospinal fluid. What else is in the spine, and what do ancient traditions say? Kundalini. Do you remember where Kundalini energy passes through? The spine? Do we activate it? The spine? We leave the body. By the way, Leonardo da Vinci also believed that there are special spherical zones in the human head connected to the eyes, and according to him, one of these spheres, which he called the healthy chamber, is the place where the soul resides. Fast forward to the 17th century and we meet René Descartes, the famous philosopher and mathematician who famously stated, "I think, therefore I am." Self-observation showed that it is possible to have only one thought in your mind at a given moment. He believed that thinking, or human imagination, is by its nature a spiritual phenomenon that belongs to us because of our divine essence. In other words, our thoughts are an expression and proof of the existence of our souls. Descartes was convinced that the pineal gland is the seat of the soul, a mediator between the spiritual and the material. Even today, in esoteric schools, the pine cone remains a common symbol of wisdom and spiritual awakening, echoing the actual shape of a pine cone in the pineal gland itself. If you go and take a little walk in the gardens of the Vatican, you will observe a huge pine cone on one of the large staircases where you can currently sit for coffee or a sandwich. What is this huge pine cone doing in the Vatican? Surely there is no symbolism in it, and we're just standing here talking complete nonsense. He who has ears, let him hear. How does this little one work? How does this tiny gland work? For a long time, scientists believed that the pineal gland didn't have any particular role. They called it the brain's appendix and considered it a remnant from our reptilian ancestors. This changed in 1958 when the American scientist Aaron Lerner discovered that it produces melatonin, a substance that plays a key role in regulating sleep and many other processes in the body. This discovery initiated new research which showed that the pineal gland actually has many important essential functions. Melatonin is a substance that our body produces to help us fall asleep and regulate our internal rhythm. Two substances are needed for its formation, adrenaline and noradrenaline, which are released by nerves near the pineal gland. Interestingly, although the adrenal glands also produce adrenaline and noradrenaline, only those that come from the nerves near the pineal gland matter for its functioning. What's even more surprising is that the pineal gland is extremely well protected. It doesn't allow adrenaline from the blood to affect it. This means that when we are under stress, the high levels of adrenaline in the body do not stop its production of melatonin. Do you understand? Once melatonin is released, it quickly spreads throughout the body via the blood and also enters the cerebrospinal fluid, which helps it act directly on the brain. You already know that we are energy, but our material bodies need those well-known filters or rules for existence so that we can adapt to the limitations of the physical world and, as they say, play this game of life. Alright then. However, the more active the filters are, the more active the protective field is, and as a result, the flow of information from the potential is more limited. The same information we're talking about that we can receive and do receive through meditation. Then naturally, we'll ask the question of how we can receive more information and, if possible, not filtered, pure, direct messages, please. It's not for just over there some kind of... We want complete understanding. Do you know what the interesting part is? That all our experiences as people on Earth are preserved as memories or filters in the cerebral cortex. It is an information carrier for the processes that help us interact with the world. In this way, everything passes through this system except when the cerebral cortex is not active. When do you think this happens? Dreams, meditation, coma, unconsciousness, déjà vu, regression, and others. At that time, the cerebral cortex is kind of in a mode, I'm ready to work, but the organ that turns our filtration on and off is actually working. In other words, the relay, the valve, or the switch button, which again connects to what we've been told since ancient times about the pineal gland. What happens in practice? The pineal gland temporarily turns off the filters, meaning the ego, the personality, the self, us as individuals, and we merge with everything that is, with the entire potential. All is one and one is all. Then we don't have a particular focus on the limitation of Stoyan, Vanya Demo, and accordingly, We turn off this filtration and receive information one-to-one. However, once we turn it back on through the pineal gland, it's a very fine line whether we might twist it in a way that's convenient and comfortable for us. That's why it's recommended to bring the information out, somewhere where our involvement will be connected to the choices or perspectives of others. For example, to record ourselves while we speak, if we talk during meditation, or to listen to the recording with other people. To write down the information as it comes, no matter how disconnected or illogical it may sound, on a blank sheet, and simply give it to someone to read it out loud in front of us. To get it out of ourselves, just let it come out of us so we don't fall into the trap of the physical mind, which, believe me, will do everything possible to twist the experience in a way that suits it best. That's how it is. That's how we are. That's what we do. The goal is to learn the alternative. The whole concept of this information that comes to us is to find the benefit outside of ourselves, to see where it will be applicable and useful, and to grasp the idea that once we have received certain information, or as Bashar says, a certain gift, it is for someone else who is ready and waiting and can't wait to receive it. This gift, once it passes through you, is for someone else. Your gifts, if you worry about them, they will come from outside, they will come from the side, they always come. But they come the most when you open up and give yourself to others. Then when you first think about it in a day, at least to have done one thing for someone, for something, or for many people. From the theory of cogitelnost, we get something very important as an addition. According to medicine, the pineal gland belongs to the dance floor in terms of shape, but it resembles a heart. It's a few millimeters between 6 and 12. It is covered with a thin connective tissue capsule from which partitions extend inward, dividing it into lobules. Each of these lobules contains calcium granules or brain sand and a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. The interesting point is that the root of the English word liquor comes from liquid, meaning fluid, and vor from vortex, referring to the swirling or vortex in the case of the energy flow that passes through us. In Bulgarian, like, on one hand as an image, and vor from Old Bulgarian, Russian, which means thief. A thief of images, someone who constantly changes and steals them. Someone who can turn on and off, switch from one to another, just like a relay. So even the very word for pineal gland, what is inside it, suggests its function. The calcium granules are ultra-miniature magnets that turn the pineal gland into a complex bioelectronic sensor, also known as a neuroendocrine relay, for switching our entire hologram to the corresponding mode. Depending on the states of the relay, the pineal gland operates in several modes. Adaptation mode, which we call conscious, logical, possible, and normal when we are awake and in physical reality. And information mode. It's unconscious, invisible, and supernatural. That's why we usually reject the second one by default. But it always remains on, and after a certain number of trainings we can activate it at will. Moreover, the intensity of its switching can be billions of times per second. That is, billions of times per second we can receive complete information from the information field. Training is essential, it's just human nature like anything else, so that we can quickly learn to ask questions, get answers, and apply them. Most importantly, to give these gifts to others. Accordingly, the more switches we make and the more we explore the results of what has happened in our environment, the more stable the connection becomes. For people who naturally have never tried, who haven't practiced enough, the results of some others may seem like supernatural abilities. That's the situation. 4 neurons come out of the pineal gland, which either open or close the corresponding system in a specific mode. This process of turning on and off is automated. Again, however, it's automated by ourselves. No one made us this way. No one made it this way for us. We made it ourselves, so we don't have to constantly wonder if it's on or off, what impulses are happening, or what's going on in the cerebral cortex and fluids inside. We've automated nearly all the processes around us. The only thing we haven't automated are our decisions and how we experience what we choose. We've saved the best fun for ourselves to dance in the reality we create and not think about those automated processes. It's very important to clarify this, because even if we think it's unconscious, we still do it. The fact that we don't understand something or put it in the category of I do this unconsciously or my subconscious does this, well, we're still the ones doing it. In other words, as a conclusion, Descartes, Leonardo da Vinci, the ancient Egyptians, and a bunch of other figures in history and cultures turn out to be right. This really is the bridge between the energy world and the material world. Though the pineal gland may seem complex, let's see how it works in practice. How do things really happen in practice? So how does it work? What is this thing called? Meditation. If meditation is not just about breathing and calming your thoughts and emotions, how is it something more? And how is it that this isn't just for a select few, Choco, when it doesn't work for 90% of people? We would say, the short answer is, it works. It works for all of you. All of you can meditate. All of you have been in meditation. It doesn't matter whether you admit it or not. It happens when we allow this version in our heads. You just allow this version of the same truth. Just like you assume that meditation helps with breathing for better health and mental balance, for relaxation and for sleep, and for emotional freedom. There are people who use it to fall asleep. That's what they believe. The only thing that separates, literally, people from, come on, deep meditation, and sinking into infinity is allowing the possibility that it can happen. In meditation, the ego briefly turns off, and then you can actually realize that you are part of a much larger system, of a much bigger game. You can see events in your life that have happened before, in quotation marks, or that will happen in the future, again in quotation marks. You can see your parallel versions, what they're doing right now, or if you had made some other similar choice in the past. You can see what that version of you is doing, because it exists with the same strength as you do. It's scary at first. It's unknown, it's strange, it's illogical, but the more we do it, the more we realize that whether we're scared or not, it doesn't matter at all. Everything exists simultaneously. It's better to be aware of this and use it when we need it most, rather than waiting for the information to fall from above. At most, we might just hit our head on some ceiling. Nothing falls from above. Nothing happens without cause, and we may end up stuck here. Everything just comes out of nowhere. The idea is to realize it. What happens in the brain during deep meditation? The brain, as we said, enters a theta state and is basically like it's about to shut down. Well, not exactly shutting down, it's more like it synchronizes the vibrations. The brain's electrical activity synchronizes. Certain impulses start to work more actively. Do you know what happens? It becomes a bit like... I'll explain it to you in my own way. Look, because I've played games and all those videos are still on the channel, you can watch them if any of you don't believe me. On the PlayStation, there's a mode called Enter Rest Mode. Rest Mode. There are a few options on the PlayStation. There's Turn Off, which is shutting down, and there's Restart and Enter Rest Mode. Rest. The last mode Literally leaves the console running, see the reference, to charge the controllers, the joysticks, to receive updates and to download games you've bought remotely. And when you turn the console back on, everything is already ready. That's also meditation. The body enters a rest mode, a mode of receiving information. It receives information. We process the energy and information. We tune in, and when we return, everything is already processed and available. We would say that our only struggle is with our own filtration. Let's see how much of this flow of information and energy we've actually allowed in at this particular moment. Into our physical body, into what we currently have as perception. How much have we heard? In fact, back in the last century, Dr. Marcel Joseph Vogel proved that human thought can influence the growth of crystals. Every person thinks through energy patterns that have their own unique frequency. This means that the crystals that grow under the influence of a person's thoughts are unique and refract energy in a specific way. While most people view reality from the outside in, the pineal gland works exactly the opposite way, from the inside out. What does that mean? In the pineal gland, there's an interesting thing, microcrystals that receive the wave frequencies directly from the source. This means that the process of creation doesn't start from the outside, but from consciousness itself, which influences the energy and manifests it in the holographic reality. If the whole is mind, then thinking is existence. Accordingly, we don't have many. We have three options. Option 1, contact for connection, activating the hologram. The microcrystals in the pineal gland act like piezo crystals. When pressure is applied to them, they generate an electric charge. This includes the protective field that regulates and shapes our interaction with the environment. Option 2, standby mode. Disabling the protection, enter rest mode. If there is no active interaction with the environment, meaning we are asleep, meditating, in regression, hypnosis, or a coma, the protection of the filters stops working and our guard drops. This allows energy to pass more freely, but it can also lead to disintegration and destruction, changes in the form of manifestation and even physical death. Option 3, the constantly on option. This is the mode of a conscious creator or a conscious choice of reality. If the frequency portal setting is in the constantly on mode, then the conscious choice determines which reality will manifest. This means that consciousness directly controls the manifestation. What is the connection? When the eye receives a light impulse, its receptors send a signal to the pineal gland, which reduces its size by half. This creates pressure on the microcrystals, activates the filters toward matter, and enhances the interaction with the environment. The reverse process, when there is no light, the pineal gland expands, the filters enter a resting mode, and information begins to flow freely, which allows for the exploration of unknown realities. If this connection is disrupted, for example, if we don't get enough sleep, go to bed very late, or are in an unsuitable environment, the pineal gland becomes desynchronized, and this starts to affect the whole body. Seventh principle, the lineage manifests on all levels. Do you understand? It's really very important to be aware of these processes when we've decided to incorporate and recognize meditation as part of daily life. In England, by the way, they even did an experiment with pregnant women who deliberately went to sleep after midnight, just like that. The result? A decrease in important hormones that affect immunity. But here's where it gets even more interesting. If we can tune the pineal gland to receive information from the information field without losing our connection to physical reality, then, friends, we are on the path to mastery, or the conscious creation and exploration of reality. Then we become conscious explorers of reality. It's beautiful. By the way, and if you remembered anything from this episode, even if you didn't remember, it doesn't matter at all. Close your eyes for a moment and relax. Allow yourself to do it. Relax your head, shoulders, neck, the whole body. Allow yourself. There are no other conditions. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is possible. Everything is equally possible. Everything is one. And the one is everything. In the dark space around you, imagine a beautiful meadow or a seashore, whichever is easier for you. Look down from a first-person perspective and look at your feet. Look around to the left and right. Recognize yourself. And without thinking too much about it, look down, look at your feet and start spinning in place. Like children, start spinning. Go from left to right. Go, spin. Come on, spin. Come on, spin. Keep spinning. Come on, until you get dizzy. Come on, spin, 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 spin. You'll start to feel it in your head. Spin. Make yourself dizzy. When you're ready, let go. Let go. And in front of you, you will see an energy tornado, a vortex. Watch as this vortex is swirling and spinning. See how it keeps spinning, how it spins so fast and with such speed that we can't even comprehend it. Look at its beauty. Spin some more and get captivated by it. Allow yourself to merge with this vortex and let it do what is most necessary for you. Spin. Allow yourself to feel sick at first glance. Allow yourself to step out of dogmas and beliefs, out of the beliefs and traps of the physical mind, because you are so much more. Whether you see it or not, whether you hear what's there for you, keep moving forward. Keep spinning and spin as fast as that you tear open space and time itself so you can go beyond it. At that moment, you start to shine. You start heading home. You start to see your true self right at that moment, emerging from the vortex of creation. Make a wish or a question, just one. Please ask your question and get an answer that you need. Relax and accept the information as it is. It doesn't matter whether it appears in the form of some frightening object, phenomenon, or you simply hear a voice in your head. Accept the information. Touch it. Get to know it. You are that too. Don't forget it. Accept and allow these frequencies within yourself. Swirl them. Crystallize them within yourself. With all the strength of the source, which you are. Touch yourself and hear the answer you need to continue your exploration of the unknown, of the unexplored, of that which will not be revealed without you, because Your uniqueness completes all of creation, and all of creation could not be all of creation without you and your uniqueness at this very moment. Hold on a little longer. Look at this desire or question of yours. Get to know it. Immerse yourself in its deepest possible aspects. See it as it is and allow it. Change yourself. Spark up. Give it all away with the same strength to yourself and everything that is. Because you're everyone and everything. And you always have been everyone and everything. As such, remains the only question: who do you choose to be now?